right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our 31st episode of A Girl Like Me Live. I cannot believe that we have made it 31 episodes. A Girl Like Me Live is the interactive streaming platform on the Well Projects page. We stream it to both Facebook and YouTube, and it will be available here and on our website afterwards. We sit down with different community members and hone in on different topics that are of interest and importance to our communities. I'm very excited about today's episode, which is a part of our She Heard They programming. She Heard They is the acronym for our Sexual Health Education, HIV Empowerment Resources, and Treating HIV Equally programming. And today, our episode is focused on National HIV Testing Day, which is tomorrow, June 27th. Very excited to have with me my three co hosts who are allowed to introduce yourself. Just tell us who you are, what type of work you do within the field, and we'll get right into it. So, whoever wants to go first. All right,
I guess
Heather.
I'll go first. Cool. Hey, everyone. My name is Heather O'Connor. I use she, they pronouns. I come to this space as a woman living with HIV, diagnosed in 2016. I currently work for the Reunion Project, which is the National Alliance of Long-Term Survivors of HIV. And I also work for the National Working Positive Coalition. And they focus on employment and disability benefits for people living with HIV. And I'm also so proud to be a community advisory board member for the Well Project. And I'm so happy to be here with you all today.
Bre.
Okay, yes. So I'm gonna go next. Bre Azanedo from Paterson, New Jersey. I am the program manager for Black Lives Matter Paterson Harm Reduction. I do harm reduction not integrating, but looping back in HIV as it should be. And I'm also a CDC ambassador for the Stop HIV Together, the Together campaign. And I'm also on the Black Harm Reduction Network um, board. So what we do there is provide, excuse my dog going crazy. We provide TA and harm reduction for Black communities.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ashley Cason. I am a person living with HIV. I am also considered a lifetime survivor because I was born with HIV, but I did not find out until I was 15 years old. I'm also a member of the community. I've worked with the homeless, the youth, providing HIV testing and just bringing awareness to HIV and AIDS. And through my company, Her Voice, I share my personal testimony about my experience living with HIV and encourage everyone to find their voice and use their voice in their life story.
Oh, that's so decent. So it makes me even more excited, jump into this conversation today about HIV testing day, like in the importance of HIV testing. Um, I know I was diagnosed after a random HIV test was given to me. To me, it was random because it was with birth control and they just offered it. It wasn't like I was going in there to get tested for HIV. And it's that test that came back positive. But there were many other times in the months preceding that I had shown up with symptoms that I should have been offered an HIV test. And I just wonder if you all see that in the work that you do, like, are there missed opportunities? Are you able to, who gets offered an HIV test? Who, those that are testing, don't.
So we offer everyone an HIV test. When I'm out in the community, anyone that have sex, even if you're having sex with one person, even if you may be married, um, just anybody and everybody just should get tested. No matter what risk that you may think that you have or don't have, it's always best just to be sure, and to also have that conversation with your partner or partners about HIV testing.
All right. Same. I offer HIV testing to everyone that I meet. Like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but I mean, you can see it's in my house. You know, I have the self testing kits here. Um, if I'm going out to an event, I'll carry one of the self testing kits in my bag. Um, and my, some people sometimes are like, well, I don't need it, and or I'm not, at risk. And so my thing is that every time you are having sex, if you are a person who has sex, regardless of a gender identity, what you're attracted to or anything, if you are having sex, you should be getting tested. That is the baseline exposure or risk factor that people like to use that word. It's having sex. I don't care with who, how many people. If you're having sex, you need to get tested, and I think that oftentimes, um, a lot of the unhoused community is not offered these services. Everyone says that they're available, and they are available, but they're not accessible to certain communities, and is usually the most marginalized communities.
Absolutely agree with that. I feel like everyone should be getting tested as often as possible. Also, I think something that's super problematic in my experience is that anytime that I've gotten an STI screening done in the past, HIV is something that you have to ask for in addition to the screening. And so for me, anytime I was getting STI screenings, it wasn't including HIV. And I, was experiencing symptoms for quite some time. I was in a monogamous relationship at the time for about 2 years. Previous to that, my previous partners, after we discontinued our relationship, I tested. And there is actually a window period after you are exposed to HIV that it will not show up on the test. And that was the case for me. And so I went a while without being tested, was tested at the beginning of my new relationship. And then when I went to get tested again, they did not offer me an HIV test. So it wasn't until like years later that I was actually diagnosed.
Oh wow, wow. And I know that so many women share those sentiments, people in general, but as we focus today, the importance of testing and awareness of that for women. I've heard so many different stories of like many times women are finding out that they're positive when they're pregnant, and I can't imagine, what that feels like. So I know that that was not always a requirement, was that you were tested during pregnancy. I'm so glad that that is here now, because that is another way that we can help, ensure that our babies are, you know, if they are exposed to HIV, that we're able to prevent those transmissions. Um, so Bre, do I've seen you on social media like do this testing and all of it. I'm gonna get to Crystal question in just a second.
Oh,
I see you do testing, like you are such an advocate for it. I see you maybe sometimes in your social media posts you do the test yourself, or you're showing people how to test. And I thank you for that advocacy. As someone who's living with HIV, I don't have this experience anymore. Is it scary, when you get in the test?
so okay, I'm gonna tell you a couple things. One, I got into this work by mistake. I applied for a prevention job thinking it was loss prevention, and I needed a job, so I was like, well, I'm here, so I'm gonna just figure it out. And in doing so, at first it was scary because it started with me, right? The advocacy, the education started with me. I had a lot of stigma unknowingly, and I was ignorant, I was misinformed. And so, um, getting an HIV test is not, I did have an exposure um, a couple, like over a year ago, and I had to get on PEP, right? Um, when I
What's
went to get, so PEP is post exposure prophylaxis, and so that's what people who are not positive after an exposure take to try and continue their negative status, right? So that you don't acquire HIV. So I did have to get that. It was scary, but it wasn't scary. It's the wrong word. I was anxious, but I was not anxious for what normally people would think like I'm scared. No, I just wanted to know which route to take because I knew that HIV, like if I was positive, um it wasn't a death sentence. It's not something that like I'm not sick. I'm not, it was gonna be okay. And if I'm not, then I also need to work on a risk reduction plan for myself. So it's not taking the test for me is not scary. It did bring me anxiety just because I'm more of a like a instant gratification, and so I need to know what I'm doing. I don't like the unknown. So for me it was just to see which path I was going to take. But it's not scary. At first talking about HIV was uncomfortable because you have to talk about sex. And a lot of times people either think you're hitting on them like off the bat, right? It's like you want to have no, I'm talking about sex in general, not you and I sex. So no, it's not scary anymore. It's never been scary. It was always like anxiety because of that. And now it's normal. Now if I don't have time to go get tested at with my doctor, I do my own test at home, my even, my self-testing kit. Um, but it's not scary. It's normal. And I'm in a monogamous relationship, but same thing I tell my clients. I could be monogamous. I don't you never know. So
It's so true. So true. Um, sometimes you get those comments on social media. Well, social media is where I engage with a lot of people.
mhm.
They're like, "Well, I don't need to get tested because I'm married," and I'm like, "Okay."
That's right. That's nice. You still want to test though?
So, Ashley, I got this question for you. So, like, being a lifetime survivor and having HIV since you were born, what do these days even mean to you? Like a national testing day, have you had to go through the experience of being tested, or how do you engage your community in getting tested as someone who is born with HIV?
So this is why I emphasize that everyone should get tested even if they're not having sex. Um, so just like I mentioned, I found out when I was 15. I was still a virgin at the time, and I was admitted to the hospital because I had a bloody stool. So I was admitted to the hospital, and then they ran tests and stuff. And that's when they ran the HIV test, and that's when I was diagnosed. So I didn't even know that they ran an HIV test until like afterwards. Um, and that's when I found out about my parents because I'm the youngest of four kids. So I didn't know about my parents' status. So just to give a little bit of a timeline, because some people always like have questions. At the time that I was born, my parents were not aware of their status. My parents found out their status a few years after I was when I was like 4 or 5 years old. But because they found out about their status after I was born, they didn't think to have me tested at the time because they didn't think I had it because they found out after I was born. So hence why I wasn't diagnosed until I was 15, but I lived 15 years with no symptoms. Like I felt perfectly fine. I feel just how I felt now. I felt perfectly fine. I didn't really have any symptoms or anything. And yeah, that was my experience. So for HIV testing day, just HIV testing in period, I encourage everybody to get tested, young, old, whatever race, new, like whatever it is that is going on. And even for those that are younger, In the state of Florida, you can get a rapid HIV test at the age of 13 without parental consent. And then we also have the HIV home test kits as well. But I always encourage everyone, even if you have kids, to talk to your children about sex. I know sometimes people will be like, "Oh, they're too young, they don't know." If they know everything else, it's you can talk to them about that too, because you have people that grow up in families that are experiencing sexual abuse at very young ages. So there are some people, some youth have already experienced sex, and we're not even having that conversation about getting tested or what is sex and what does it mean, and different things like that. So with HIV testing day, or HIV testing in period, everybody get tested, every single person. Oh, I'm not having sex. Okay, I wasn't having sex either. What's your point?
What a great like perception. I just made a video today, talking about the importance of testing if you're having sex, but I didn't even think of that part of it. Like, yeah. I mean, what's the matter with knowing your HIV status? I would want to know, to be sure that it's negative. And then if it's positive, then like Bre was saying, I would want to. I know that I'll be okay. I know that there's treatment and that there's community out there, but I just need to know where I am so that I know what route to take.
And I
Um,
also want to point out real quick,
yeah,
getting HIV tested also allows the opportunity to be educated, because where you're going to get HIV tested, you should. Every facility is different, but you should be getting educated on HIV overall. And with that, it helps break some of the stigma that we have still in our communities. Because for me as well, I also do HIV testing. So when people come in, I talk to them about HIV and bring that awareness, because, you don't know unless somebody tell you. You can't follow everything a family member tell you or what you see online, because everything is not true. So when they hear it from a professional, it helps, because it's breaking down that stigma of HIV being this and HIV being that, or you have to be promiscuous to get it, and that's not the case. HIV doesn't have a color, it doesn't have a gender, it like anyone is vulnerable to it. And that's the point that we have to get everybody to understand.
absolutely. Heather, I love what you brought up about having to request that HIV test separately. Like, so you go get tested and you get your results and you're like, oh, everything's good. What is it like to then know, oh crap, y'all haven't been testing for this the whole time? Like, how did that change how you advocate for your healthcare period, realizing something like that?
Yeah, so I think for me, like speaking from my own personal experience, and I just want to like disclaimer, this is my own personal experience that I'm speaking from. I grew up in a household where sex wasn't talked about, we didn't talk about sex, we didn't talk about masturbation, and I went to Catholic school where HIV was, simply a term that was we defined it, but we never talked about it because we were being told not to have sex. And so sex in general, I think, is stigmatized. There's stigma around sex in general. And so when you get to things like STI screening and HIV screening, for me myself, I was so like secretive about my sex life. I wasn't sharing it with anyone. And so I wasn't, practicing safe sex all the time. On top of that, there's condom negotiation, like feeling as if I don't have the right or I don't have the power. I wasn't empowered to talk about, hey, should we be using a condom? Like, or we should be using a condom. And so I feel like I didn't have agency over my own sex life. And I didn't have the knowledge to know when I was going in to get tested that I should make sure to include HIV testing. And considering that as my own personal experience as a medical provider, someone who is providing testing, it's so incredibly important to make sure that the conversation is being had in a safe space where we're considering things like HIV testing and STI screening, and we just live in this society where I just think that sex isn't talked about as much as it should be. We should be talking about sex, all types of sex, monogamous sex, polyamorous sex. Like, we were saying, if you're married, that you should still be getting tested. We should still know what is going on in our bodies. And that's like a form of empowerment, knowing your status. That's you being empowered. That's you taking control of your sex life, of your sexual identity. Knowing, your status is a form of taking control of your life. And so for me to, find out later on in life when I was experiencing symptoms and they were doing tests for leukemia, lupus, all of that, when I finally was asked if I wanted an HIV test, it wasn't even anything that I considered. The doctor even left the room after, writing down all these tests that she was going to do to find out why I was having these symptoms. Some of them were neurological. I forgot how to drive a car. I didn't know my address. I couldn't say like my social security number. I couldn't recall any of that. And the doctor left the room after, all of this conversation, came back and said, is it okay if I do an HIV test? And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. But like, I've been in a monogamous relationship for 2 years and I was tested before that. So like, I don't think that that's an issue, but go ahead and run the test. And it changed my life. But if I, now I'm a mom, I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and it's so incredibly important to me that when they become of age to where they understand and they start asking questions about sex, we're going to talk about testing. We're going to talk about condom negotiation. We're going to talk about, empowerment and being able to own your own sexual being. I just think it's so incredibly important. And I just feel really, really passionate about it. And I don't think that I would have felt as passionate about it if this wasn't my journey. But it is. And so I'm talking about it and I'm going to continue to talk about it. And I'm thankful that everyone in this space is talking about it.
Yes, thank y'all for talking about it. Such powerful statements and just things that I hadn't even thought about. So thank you. I did want to go back to Krista's comment that was posed to Bre. Uh, do people listen to you when you talk about that part about everyone who is having sex shit, having HIV tests? Do they listen?
They hear me. I don't know if they listen. Um, I'm very pushy and manipulative in a good way, right? So when I bring up testing and we talk about it, and it's like, all right, well, you're scared to do it, let's do it together. So you don't have to do it alone. So sometimes I do get tested a lot more often. And it's just because you're not gonna do this alone. If that is your barrier, we'll do it together. And most times people do get tested. And it's also, I don't come off straight off bat like HIV test taken out. It's building a relationship with someone and making sure someone feels safe because you don't also want to be intrusive. But yeah, I've had much success with that.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so this question might sound off the wall, but I promise you it's not. How can we work to reduce the HIV disparities among women, particularly women of color? And how can, something like testing be a tool to help reduce those disparities?
I
I
think
would,
I can go ahead and start.
you want to go ahead?
Mm-hmm. Knowledge is power, and I think it's important to have conversations about anything and everything regarding the sexual health. Encourage Black women, Black Black women to be a part of the conversations, to be a part of the planning, to be a part of certain decisions. Um, Even if they may be a patient of an organization, an employee, or even just a community member. Um, we all have different lives, and we don't know what someone else may be experiencing in their life unless they share it. So the only way we could bridge those gaps is we have to come together and we have to have those conversations to find out what are the needs and how can we support them and how can we do better to move forward, especially as a unit, and to also make sure that our community feels like they have that support. Because as a Black woman, um, I know sometimes we don't always feel supported from our own community, when it's things that we need, when it's things that we're trying to say, when it's things that we're trying to communicate. Um, Sometimes we are often misunderstood, or our experiences are not validated or taken seriously. So, my personal opinion, I think we need to have open conversations about everything, and that's the only way we're going to learn about one another, so we can help bridge those gaps and those disparities, and also break down stigma at the same time surrounding sexual health overall.
So I agree. I think the conversations have to be had no matter how uncomfortable they are. I think education is the first step in reducing um, the transmission rate. And there's a lot of people have stigma without even knowing. They have it, and the misinformation is so real out there that they believe this all these false narrative to be true. And I that was me prior to having someone educate me. That was me. And so it's given also grace that when we are educating our community, not to be like, well, you should have known this, because how were they supposed to know if this information wasn't brought up to them? And bringing people in, like, I've heard someone say calling out and calling in, right? That kind of approach, like, I hear you, that's not how it works though. And so um you know telling our community members, our Black and brown women, we have the highest transmission rate, but Black women have the least sexual partners, are more likely to use prevention methods, but we still have a higher transmission rate compared to our white counterparts. So, what's what's the barrier is that we're just not. Condoms are available, yes, but do they have access to them? Like, are we having? I have in my house, right? I have a 16-year-old boy, condom jar. So when all these little boys come after football practice, there's HIV testing kits. There are condoms on the coffee table, and so it's making sure that our women are empowered, and have the tools readily available to them.
Yes, I love that. I love that. They probably love coming to your house. But I love that because when as I was growing up, though, that would have never been a thing. Like, nobody was asking whether or not I needed condoms. They was just saying don't get pregnant and then put me on birth control. So STI and HIV testing wasn't even a thing. Um, and I think that other ways that we can help with these HIV disparities among women is when I go into a provider or any space and something is not right, I'm letting them know this process is going to have to be better for the next person that comes after me, the next woman. If I'm in this office, this OBGYN office, and I'm here to address my birth control, you're digging inside of my body. Why are you not talking to me about my partner and is he on PrEP? You know that I'm living with HIV. Why are these conversations? It seems like the most vulnerable space that I could be in with a provider who I feel like should be giving me this information. So, yo, that wasn't right. How about the next person that comes in? Maybe you do have these conversations because you can't assume that they're being had anywhere else. Um, Heather, I don't know if you had anything to add to how we can reduce HIV disparities among women. I'll open it up to you now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that Bree and Ashley, like you, I totally echo your sentiment. Testing needs to be made accessible to everyone. It needs to be happening in more places. It needs to be happening in safe spaces. And, we need to be able to empower women, especially, Black women and women of color, to be able to, say if they don't feel safe, and to make safe spaces for them. And part of that is like, honestly, like, even friendships and like relationships in your life, like talk to your friends, like build those relationships and like set the scene for you guys to be able to like say, like, are you feeling safe? Like, what's up with you? Hey girl, when's the last time you got tested? I'm going to get tested. You want to go with me? Like, and just having testing happen in more places than just in the physician's office, because I feel as though there is this dynamic between the patient and provider sometimes, that maybe the patient doesn't feel as though they're able to advocate for themselves, or may not feel as comfortable doing that in a position like that. And so let's make sure that testing is happening in multiple spaces, safe spaces. It's being followed up with mental health care. It's not one and done. You get tested once and like you end up with a negative result. Like, we're going to continue to get tested, like we need to make that part of our routine, part of our self-care, part of our self-love. And as a white woman living in like a world of privilege, I find that the best thing that I can do is create space for platforms for Black women to share their experiences and share their thoughts, their needs, their wants, and uplift the voices of my sisters. It's incredibly important. There is no reason that, a positive result should come as like an afterthought, like it should be a regular thing that we're uplifting each other to do and to get done. And discrete spaces for testing to be done, so you're not feeling exposed, you're not feeling vulnerable. It can be a very scary process, but like Bre was saying, there's so much to say about making it not scary and making it like part of your normal routine. And come on, let's get tested. It's a positive thing. We want to make sure that we're empowering ourselves and taking control of our sex life and our status.
Whew, y'all done said some mouthfuls. This is such a great conversation, and I hope that that person that's out there that's been wondering whether or not they should go get tested. I hope that they would go get tested. You are definitely supported, and if you need more of that support, you can reach out to. I'm sure us reach out to the Well Projects. Someone will support you through that process. As we continue to talk about testing, what do you all feel like are some common misconceptions of HIV testing?
So it takes too long. That it takes too long. That the blood draw is gonna hurt. And oh, oh my god, no. Those That's what I get all the time, and so this is how I throw that back. I fear and I postpone my wax appointment more than I will ever fear an HIV test, or will I ever postpone that? Because that other one takes longer because I'm out here screaming bloody murder. And so this doesn't hurt. It doesn't take any time. It is, by the time you are done for it's 20 minutes. That one, it's quick, it's easy, and it's free. Also, people think that, it's going to be expensive or it's going to show up, someone's going to find out. Another thing is that people talk, so it's like, well, so and so works there, and then I don't want to go there because they're going to tell. And you also have to remind people, HIPAA, you can sue them. Like, don't even worry about that. But that's always what I get, that it's either painful or that it takes too long.
What is
I
that?
have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. I was gonna ask. Okay, so Bre, I followed you on Instagram earlier, and I saw your post about the Aura Quick testing, which I like have never had any experience with. That's like in your mouth, right? And it's like super quick,
Yeah, you don't even need blood at this point.
and you
It's
can get
a
it at the
it's a
store.
swab. It's a swab. It is all of 10 minutes to do the test. 20 in total. You'll have your results. Up to 20 minutes, but those results come in almost instantly. I and either way, they will come, whether it's positive or reactive or non-reactive. They will come up within, I want to say, in my experience, 15 minutes. I think 20 minutes is what they give you overall, but this is super easy. You can get them at the people can go to the Stop to Together campaign like website and order them. Also, if someone reaches out to BLM Patterson, we can send them. But and they're like $40 at Target, because I see them at Target. I go to Target all the time, and they're $40, and it's like, y'all are paying for something that's free. All these things is free. This thing is a lifesaver, time saver, because it's, at this point, it's, it doesn't hurt at all. It's a swab, you know and the prick doesn't hurt anyway. But if that's what people say, I'm like, well, this one is a swab, so what are you saying? What are we doing?
That's exactly what I wanted to know too. What is the testing process like?
um I don't want to open this one. So it has a swab. You swab it up top, and then on the insides on your gums. And then there's a solution which you just dip it into. You take that out, and it has a whole case. I wish I was at the office, because I have the one that I walk people through with it. And it has a whole case. It has all the liquids. It is all effective. They are. This doesn't say, but I have never gotten a false positive or a false negative. I'm sorry, I responded to that question. I wasn't sure I messed that up. But yeah, so just is a swab, dip it in, and then put it on a little stand to like dry, and results come in. We have been using these for the last 3 years, and I've never gotten a false positive or, yeah. So it's been super accurate on my end.
Is that pretty much your same experience, Ashley? Because the question was, what are some common misconceptions when it comes to HIV testing? And Bre was saying that people think that it's going to take too long or that it's expensive, right? Yeah. Or that it
Yes,
hurt.
I've had those same experiences. Also, they think that it's always a blood draw, because a lot of people think that. So they'll say no, no, like I don't like needles, or I don't like getting my blood drawn. And I tell them no, like it's just a finger prick. It's super quick. So once I tell them it's a finger prick, some people kind of, change their mind. But there's some people that are uncomfortable with the finger prick. With the finger prick, I've had people like jumping in the chair too over a finger prick. But just like she was saying with the home test kits, it's a swab. So because it's a swab, you don't have to puncture your skin in any way. So therefore, there's no reason why you shouldn't be getting a test. You could come into the clinic and you can do it with the finger prick, or you can have labs done, or you could do the swab.
And so there was a question that said, can you talk about the support available if someone does get a positive test at home? What happens then?
So I know we normally also would share our contact information and also the information to the Department of Health. But I do know that can be a tricky situation, especially if you're doing it in the comfort of your own home and if you do get a positive test and the people or person that you may be around, you may not want to share that with. So in that moment, you may not have that support. Or you may be there by yourself and there may not be anyone around. So you don't have anyone to initially support you in that moment. So that's one thing that I can definitely say is a barrier, unfortunately. But there are resources that are shared in the community that they can link to for care and treatment and additional services.
For me, or for us as an organization, if people are requesting them from us, I go the extra mile to make sure that they have my phone number. So you want to, if you're going to do this at home, then if you want to do this together over FaceTime, or you just want me on the phone, like we can, make sure, because that is the barrier, that you are alone or they're with people that they may not feel safe around. However, if they do take it in the office, if it does come to be reactive, then we take all the steps together. So I'm not sending you, because I've worked at places where it was like, okay, well, send them on Uber Health to this place, and it's like, no, let's go together, because you did not just experience that, and I was like, I got my units, you gotta go. So we're gonna go to whatever your next steps are. Let's do this together. And yeah.
That is so important. I couldn't imagine testing positive being alone. It felt pretty much being alone even when I received my results from a person from the public health district and then someone from the health clinic. They were still two people that were not living with HIV who didn't understand what I was about to embark on. That felt lonely, but I can only imagine sitting in my living room testing positive. So thank you for the information. Thank you for going the extra mile to get people to support, because that's the last thing we would want, is to be alone. I just saw the comment across the screen about criminalization. Like, some people won't get tested because they don't want to be criminalized, or that they don't want their status held against them. And I can understand that, because some of these laws that are still in place are so unfair and so archaic that, like, now it's this responsibility once you know that you're living with HIV. Like, you have to do these things, and some people just rather stay in a place of not knowing. And it's unfortunate that's this way, but I agree, Krista, that's definitely another topic that we could hone in and talk about, how unfair so many of these criminalization laws are. Bre, you're pretty important. I mean, not important, it's pretty popular in the comment section. Ashley, your mama love you, okay? And she loves us too. All
I do keep
right.
seeing that. She does love me. I wish my mom loved me that much.
Um, Bre, someone had asked, can you explain that with the self-testing kit, you are collecting cells from the inside of your cheek, not saliva? I've had
Right.
folks thinking that
So,
HIV through saliva.
see, so that is the only downside of this test, because then you have to, this isn't very clear on how it works. And so if when we give this to someone, then it's like, oh, so you can transmit it with the saliva is, and I'm like, no, 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 that's not how this works. This is like cells, it's not the saliva itself. And so the only downside to this test is that when people are not educated or alone, or maybe don't feel comfortable asking these questions, they assume that saliva is a mode of transmission. And so if when I don't have control when like CDC sends them out, or But when we send them out, I like to either have a phone call or I'll write a little note, um, of a little note with a little snippet of you know um, how it's transmitted, because I do know and I understand how confusing this could be, because they're like, wait, but you're telling me saliva is not, you can't spread it through a kiss, right? Because that's exactly what you can't spread it through a kiss, but this is a swab, and you have to go into, but it's not the saliva, it's the little cells inside. I'm not a doctor, also, so I don't know the proper terminology, but I'm like, it's not the saliva, it's like the cells. Um, that's the only downside to this, that it in a way perpetuates the stigma and the misinformation. um, that's really the only downside, though.
Thank you for that. It's so much to learn continually. About HIV testing, the importance, and how that really impacts our lives. I wanted to ask this question. How can you how do you stay motivated, as people that are living with HIV, me, Heather, and Ashley, to like, how do you stay motivated as a woman living with HIV? And Bre, how do you stay motivated to ensure that you are not living with HIV? Motivation. Whoever wants to take it.
I think like a big part of it is just acknowledging the fact that like HIV is something that it's like a factor in my life, but it doesn't define who I am. And if anything, I've become a stronger person, and I've become a more loving person, a more nurturing person, a more open person. So that motivates me. Anytime I have a person reach out to me, asking questions about HIV, or, coming to me with a positive diagnosis, and like just being able to create a space where they feel held in that moment. And this also has brought me to this work, and I was able to meet you, CC, and now I know you, Ashley and Bre. Like, y'all are my sisters, and I just feel like it's brought me a community that has taught me what love is. Like, I didn't know love like that before being introduced to this community. And I think like there's something to say about the first time you walk into a room full of people who are either like also living with HIV, or allies to those who are living with HIV, who have those conversations that are difficult. Like, it's life changing. It's truly, truly life changing. And also it helps you weed out the people you don't want in your life. Like, if you meet someone and you're vibing and everything's great, and you're friends or whatever, and then they find out that you're positive, and that changes the way they feel about you, then bye. Like, I don't need you anyways. Thanks for showing that to me. So I don't know, I just feel like it has made me more myself, and that's motivating.
And I'll go next and say that it is motivated me because I was like 20 when I got diagnosed, and I wasn't doing anything different than the people that were hanging out with me. So I'm like, y'all, no, this for real. If I got it, we could get it too. How we gonna stop y'all from getting it? And that's sort of been my mission. My entire diagnosis is, how do I help other people not end up living with HIV? And then for the people that's living with HIV, how are we going to live the lives that we want to? Like, okay, we know we got HIV, but how can I still obtain that life, that quality of life, those experiences that I want despite this diagnosis? And when we find a way, I'm going to pass that way on to my next sister, and we all going to be out here living the lives that we want to. So it's definitely motivating for myself and empowering for other individuals.
So for me, I don't think I focus. Thank you guys for that. Also, I just want to, you know, kudos to you guys. But so I don't focus too much on saying I don't saying HIV negative, right? Because I think sometimes that could be taken as if I was to say, like, that could be taken out of context. So I really, my motivation is I see what it does to my community, what it has done to my community when it goes untreated, and how we can stop the transmission. Um, I say my community because the I work mostly with the unhoused community and people in chaotic use, and so it is very easy to fall out of care. The medication gets stolen, the medication gets lost, and so you can't just go back to the doctor's office and say, I need a new prescription, because they won't give it to you. And so my motivation is to make sure that we're all taken care of. We're all living a healthy life. People are in care. People are, doing prevention methods, and it that's my motivation, making sure that my community is safe. Because when you work with a very specific population, the falling out of care is it's horrible. And then they won't go to the hospital. They won't go to the doctor because they're not welcomed in these places. As much as we want to say they are, where they're not. My thing just came off. Where they're not, because of stigma that they experience, multiple types of stigma, not just the HIV part, but also the substance use. And so for me, it's my motivation is my community, my participants, and the people that I love, my friends that are, living with HIV, all my colleagues. Like, that's my motivation. Make sure that I'm walking besides everybody.
For me, it will definitely be my family, my kids. Um, I will also have to say my community. I decided to go public about my status back in, I think, 2017. And I did not expect to get the response and feedback that I've gotten ever since I went public. But the reason that I went public is to help break down the stigma in my community, to be a voice for my community. Um, Also, I just got tired of kind of like hiding behind it. Um, because when I was first diagnosed, like most people, I went through like the depression phase and all that stuff. And one day I told myself, I'm dealing with this for a reason, and I want to find out what that reason is. And I had no idea it was going to lead me to where it has led me. Um, because of that, I've had opportunities to speak on platforms just like the one I'm speaking on today with the Well Project, and to be a part of different campaigns and to do a lot of different things within my community and beyond. And really, that drives me because um, I like to educate my community, and I definitely like when it's received. And I also like the challenges too, because sometimes you have people that when you're trying to educate them, they challenge you on your information. Um, but I also know in our community, we don't trust people like that don't look like us. So if you don't look like us and you telling us X, Y, and Z, we don't trust you. Um, Having that sense of relatability is important. I remember when I was diagnosed, and they would try to get me to see like a psychologist. The psychologist inside the clinic was an older white guy. He was cool, but he was an older white guy. I'm a teenage black girl. What am I going to open up to you about? I never felt comfortable opening up to you about anything. You don't look like me. We're not even the same age. You probably don't have HIV. What is the point of us having this conversation? And that's just how I felt even as a teenager. So just imagine how everyone else feel now. So it is amazing when you see people within your community and beyond, from different races, different colors, different sizes, different genders, that really appreciate the work that you do. So that is what motivates me, because I know for me, and I know a lot of people, especially women, have also felt this way. Sometimes we have experiences in our lives where we felt voiceless. We felt like we're not heard, when we try to speak our mind about certain things, even if it's not HIV related. Our feelings are not taken as in importance. We're not considered. we're overlooked. And then when people do hear us, it's like, oh, you sound angry, you sound upset, or they try to put labels on us and more stigmas on us that's not necessarily true. So that's the main thing that drives me. We're breaking down those barriers out here.
Oh, I loved all of your answers. I have loved this episode today. National HIV Testing Day is tomorrow. And so we're going to end this with everyone to answer. So if someone that you came across was nervous to get tested for HIV, what would you tell them?
I would say get your stuff together. We're going for lunch and then we're going to get tested. And I'll go with you and I'll hold your hand and I'll sit next to you and I'm not going to leave you. And, we're in it together. I think that community and that support is just so incredibly necessary, and the feeling of not being left alone. I found out my positive status when it was accidentally posted online in my patient portal, and then it was confirmed when I was at a Chipotle with brand new coworkers, and I was behind the restaurant crying by the dumpsters, and that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. You know, we there are resources, the Well Project, there's plethora of resources. There are people out there, we're on social media. Find us, find someone in your area, go with someone you trust and you love. And you're not alone. You're not. Regardless, you're not.
So I would, I second that. You're definitely not alone. Reach out to one of us, reach out to a provider that you trust in your area. I can what I could offer is, if you're, not near me, or we can't do this together, then we can do it over FaceTime. Or I have a lot of, we all have colleagues that are in different areas. See, the Together campaign, we're thrown in all over. Like, we will find you people to do this with. You're not alone. And not knowing is scarier than knowing, because it's it's going to be okay. Either way, it's going to be okay. Like, it's the unknown is what's the scary part. The test is not the scary part. Is the fact that you don't know. So no, get that out the way, and you know that's all I have to say. Like, get tested. Just get tested, please.
So for me, I'm an open book, so I share my personal story often. Um, because sometimes it helps, because sometimes when people want to get tested, sometimes they just assume that you're just trying to get them to get tested because you're trying to get them to be safe and yada yada yada. And it's like, no, like, I'm living with it. Like, I'm dealing with this on a daily basis. I'm not just telling you this because it's my job, or I'm not just telling you this because I'm an advocate. I'm not just telling you this because it sounds right and it sounds cute. And although those things may be true as well, but as a person that is living with HIV, um, that's also an opportunity in a moment to educate them, to reassure them that it's not a death sentence if you are, that you can live a long, healthy life. But there's also a possibility that you're not. And the only way you're going to know that for sure is if you get tested. And some people have the misconception, oh, well, if I have something, I'll have symptoms. You don't always have symptoms, because I didn't have symptoms. I went for 15 years with not one single symptom of HIV. So that's how I kind of use my personal story to kind of encourage people to get tested. um I am a mom of two, so I'm not always in a predicament where I can go with people to get tested. But in any additional ways that I can support them, I've had people that have reached out to me through social media, asking questions, asking for support, or even people that may be HIV negative, but they have a family member or friend that is HIV positive, or that may have some questions about HIV. So I do offer a lot of my support that way as well. But just like I said, a lot of things is just really just having a conversation, Um, but also having a comfortable conversation, because if the atmosphere or the environment is uncomfortable, that person's not really going to hear and accept what you may be saying or trying to express to them. So yeah, just my personal testimony, and we're all in this together, just like Bre and Heather said. We, regardless of what positive or negative side you may be on, we're all in this together, because our sexual health, even for people living with HIV, is just as important as well.
What a great discussion today. We've gotten those same comments and sentiments in the comment section. What I would have to say to that person that may be hesitant is just do it. Reach out for support. The support is here. Do it. So, because you don't want to be guessing on something as important as your HIV status. So, once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been wonderful. Thank you, Bre, Ashley, and Heather. We hope to see you out there somewhere in the community. Thank you for joining the Well Projects, A Girl Like Me Live. You all have a great, great day.
Bye.